Right now, thousands of feet beneath the Arabian desert, machines are carving tunnels through ancient bedrock. The videos call it a hidden underground city, a $500 billion refuge from lethal heat. Millions of people have watched them. There's just one problem: almost everything in those videos is wrong. But the truth buried under that sand? It's stranger than the myth. In the next 20 minutes, you'll see exactly what Saudi Arabia is really digging, and why. Summer in the Arabian Gulf is not like summer anywhere else. Surface temperatures regularly push past 50 degrees Celsius, a heat that can kill an unprotected human in hours. The region already spends staggering amounts of energy just to survive. Air conditioning consumes a massive share of Saudi electricity every summer. So the idea of escaping underground sounds logical. And that's exactly what a wave of viral videos claims is happening: a secret subterranean civilization, cooled by the earth itself, funded by $500 billion of oil money. This is TrendXverseGo. Today, we dig through the hype, layer by layer, until we hit bedrock, the documented truth. And I promise you, the real story is bigger than the fake one. Let's start with the claim itself. Scroll through YouTube or TikTok and you'll find dozens of videos with titles like Saudi Arabia's hidden underground cities, renders of glowing caverns, luxury apartments inside rock, entire districts buried beneath the dunes. The number attached is always the same: $500 billion. It's a compelling image. Humanity, defeated by its own climate, retreating into the earth like something out of science fiction. But when you try to trace these renders to an actual construction site, an actual contract, an actual company, the trail goes cold. So where did this story come from? The answer starts in 2017. In October 2017, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stood on a stage in Riyadh and announced NEOM, a futuristic mega-region in the country's northwest, backed by the Public Investment Fund with an initial commitment of $500 billion. That's the real source of the number. Not an underground city, an entire experimental territory the size of a small country, meant to wean Saudi Arabia off oil. NEOM was pitched as flying taxis, robot servants, an artificial moon. The press called it science fiction. They weren't entirely wrong. But one piece of NEOM would capture the world's imagination more than all the others combined. In January 2021, the kingdom revealed the line: a single continuous city, 170 kilometers long, just 200 meters wide, and 500 meters tall, taller than the Empire State Building, designed to house 9 million people with no cars, no streets, and no carbon emissions. 2 mirrored walls of glass running across the desert. And here's the detail most people missed: to make a car-free city work, everything that moves, high-speed rail, freight, utilities, had to go somewhere. The answer was down. Beneath the line, engineers designed an entire hidden layer of infrastructure. This is the kernel of truth inside the myth. Because the line's underground layer is real, and it's enormous. Contractors have excavated tunnel sections stretching over 28 kilometers for high-speed and freight rail beneath the city's planned route. A consortium led by Spain's FCC reported milestone progress on the tunneling works. In July 2024, NEOM announced it had completed the construction phase of an underground parking structure and a light rail tunnel ahead of schedule. Real machines. Real rock. Real money. If you flew over the site in northwest Saudi Arabia, you'd see trenches carved across the desert like a scar visible from space. And then there's the project almost nobody outside architecture circles has heard of, Aquelum. Announced in January 2024, it's a planned subterranean digitalized community hidden inside a 450-meter-high mountain on the Gulf of Aqaba, accessed through an underwater square, descending into an inverted skyscraper carved downward into the rock. No highways. No visible city at all. Just a mountain, and a hidden world inside it. When you see viral thumbnails of Saudi Arabia's secret underground city, this render, Aquelum, is usually what they're showing you. It exists. On paper. And that distinction, on paper, is about to become very important. So let's give the myth its due. Saudi Arabia really is spending on the scale of hundreds of billions. It really is digging vast tunnels beneath the desert. It really has announced an underground community inside a mountain. The viral videos didn't invent these ingredients, they just blended them into a single fictional dish, a finished, inhabited, secret underground city. The reality is messier, slower, and honestly, more fascinating. Because the next question is the one that matters: does building underground in the desert actually make scientific sense? The physics, the real physics, will surprise you. But that's not even the most surprising part of this story. Here's the core scientific idea, and it's ancient: the ground is a thermal battery. Solar heat struggles to penetrate more than a few meters of Earth. Go down just 2 to 3 meters, and the temperature stops swinging with the seasons, it settles near the local annual average. Field measurements in hot climate underground buildings found rooms at a depth of about 2.3 meters were up to 12 degrees Celsius cooler than equivalent rooms above ground in summer. 12 degrees, for free, forever, no electricity required. That's not a gadget. That's physics. And humans figured this out thousands of years before air conditioning existed. In central Iran, traditional houses were built with shapestones, underground living rooms where families spent the brutal summer months, ventilated by wind-catcher towers. In Coober Pedy, Australia, around half of the residents live in dugouts carved into the hillside to escape 50-degree outback summers. In China's 2022 and 2023 heatwaves, cities like Chongqing opened Cold War air raid shelters as public cooling refuges. Underground living isn't a futurist fantasy. It's a survival strategy humans keep rediscovering, every time the surface turns hostile. Modern engineering supercharges the same principle. Geothermal exchange systems pump fluid through boreholes, using the Earth's stable temperature to cool buildings at a fraction of conventional energy cost. Singapore's Marina Bay runs one of the world's largest underground district cooling networks, chilled water distributed through subterranean pipes, cutting building cooling emissions by roughly 40%. Abu Dhabi's Masdar city has spent a decade testing these systems in genuine desert heat. So the technology stack for a cooled underground district isn't speculative. Every component exists, deployed, today. The question was never can you build it. The question is scale, and cost. And this is where Saudi Arabia's numbers get dizzying. The line alone carried an official price tag around $200 billion, with independent analysts estimating the full 170-kilometer build-out could reach $500 billion to over $1 trillion. An internal audit reviewed by the Wall Street Journal put the total long-term cost of everything NEOM has announced at $8.8 trillion. For comparison, the entire Apollo program cost roughly $260 billion in today's dollars. Saudi Arabia wasn't proposing a project. It was proposing the most expensive construction undertaking in human history. Why gamble that much? One word: oil. Crude sales have long dominated Saudi government revenue, and the kingdom knows the world is slowly decarbonizing. Vision 2030, the master plan NEOM belongs to, is an attempt to build a post-oil economy before the oil economy fades. Tourism, technology, logistics. The line was its crown jewel, its proof to investors that Saudi Arabia could outbuild anyone. Which is why what happened next sent shockwaves far beyond construction news. Because the diggers stopped. Through 2024, cracks appeared. Bloomberg reported the 2030 target had been slashed from 1.5 million residents to fewer than 300,000, with only 2.4 kilometers of the city expected by decade's end. Then, on September 16, 2025, the Public Investment Fund suspended construction on the line entirely, until further notice. By March 2026, major tunneling contracts and the Trojena Mountain Resort works were being cancelled outright. The most ambitious city in human history had, for the moment, become the world's most expensive trench. Foundations for roughly 2.4 kilometers exist, but as of early 2026, no above-ground superstructure has risen. Think about what that means for the viral videos. The hidden underground city content exploded in the same years the actual project was being paused and shrunk. The myth grew as the reality contracted, almost as if the internet needed the city to exist, even when the desert said otherwise. And that gap between render and rock is not an accident. It's a pattern that runs through this entire story. To understand it, we need to look at what an internal audit found. In 2024, the Wall Street Journal reported on an internal NEOM audit describing extensive problems with the project's planning, including what it called evidence of deliberate manipulation of finances by certain executives, alongside years of eye-watering consultant fees. The renders that fed the world's imagination, and the viral underground city myth, were, according to critics, part of the machinery that kept money and belief flowing. So here's the uncomfortable question this raises: was the underground dream ever really about surviving the heat? Or was it about something else entirely? That's where this story gets genuinely complicated. Let's argue both sides properly, because this isn't a simple scam story, and it isn't a simple triumph story either. The case for, even scaled back, NEOM has already built real, unprecedented infrastructure, 28 kilometers of rail tunnels, a completed underground light rail and parking complex, ports, hotels, and one of the world's largest planned green hydrogen plants at Oxagon. Defenders argue every transformative megaproject in history, the Panama Canal, the Channel Tunnel, blew past budgets and timelines before changing the world. If even a fraction of the line's underground spine one day carries trains through a cooled corridor, the experiment will have produced knowledge no one else owns. The case against is heavier. Human rights organizations documented that members of the Huaytat tribe were forcibly displaced from land in the NEOM zone, with reports of lengthy prison sentences, and death sentences, for residents who resisted eviction. Critics also point to the carbon cost. Excavating and pouring concrete on this scale emits megatons of CO2 long before any zero-carbon city can offset it. And economists note the brutal opportunity cost, hundreds of billions that could have retrofitted existing Saudi cities, where real people already live, with shade, transit, and district cooling. A city for the future, they argue, was prioritized over citizens of the present. Now zoom out, because the stakes are bigger than one kingdom. The Gulf is a preview of everyone's climate future. Studies project that parts of South Asia and the Middle East could experience heat and humidity combinations near the limit of human survivability within this century. Billions of people live in regions warming faster than infrastructure can adapt. Whatever you think of Saudi Arabia's motives, someone was eventually going to run this experiment. Can you engineer permanent, comfortable human habitat in heat that kills? The world gets to watch the results, without paying the tuition. And the quieter truth is, the underground future is already arriving, just not as glowing luxury caverns. It looks like Singapore pushing utilities, storage, and data centers into deep caverns to free surface land. It looks like Montreal's Réseau network, 30-plus kilometers of climate-controlled walkways beneath downtown. It looks like geothermal district systems spreading through cities from Paris to Brooklyn. Boring? Maybe. But boring is what real infrastructure looks like. The viral myth promised a hidden city. The real world is building hidden systems, and they'll matter to your daily life far sooner. So what happens to NEOM now? As of mid-2026, reporting suggests the line is effectively on ice until after 2030, while Saudi Arabia redirects attention toward nearer-term deadlines. The kingdom is set to host Expo 2030 in Riyadh and the FIFA World Cup in 2034. Aquelum, the mountain community, remains an announced concept without a confirmed construction timeline. The $500 billion was never a budget for an underground city, it was a bet on national reinvention. And bets, by definition, can be lost. But there's one last layer to dig through, what this story says about us. Why did millions of us click on hidden underground cities? Because the myth answers a question we're all quietly asking: when the climate turns against us, is there an escape hatch? A render of a cool, glowing cavern is comforting in a way a district cooling pipe diagram never will be. The uncomfortable answer is that there is no secret city waiting. There are only choices, about where trillions of dollars flow, who gets displaced when they flow there, and whether we build for photographs or for people. Saudi Arabia's desert holds both possibilities right now, a scar of an abandoned dream, and the seeds of a genuinely new way to live with heat. So let's settle the claim we started with. Is there a $500 billion hidden underground city beneath Saudi Arabia? No. There is a $500 billion national gamble, a real network of tunnels beneath a paused megacity, a mountain community that exists only in renders, and physics, solid, ancient physics, proving the ground beneath our feet is the cheapest air conditioner ever discovered. The myth was wrong about the facts, but weirdly right about the direction. Humanity's fight against heat is heading underground, one tunnel, one borehole, one cooled corridor at a time. Picture the year 2060. Not a glowing cavern metropolis, but a Gulf city where metro lines, malls, schools, and server farms hum quietly below ground, where surface streets are shaded corridors you cross between climate-controlled depths, and where the energy bill for staying alive in summer has collapsed because the earth does the work. Every piece of that picture already exists somewhere today. The only unbuilt part is the connection between them. That version of the underground future doesn't need a crown prince or a myth. It needs decades of unglamorous digging. And that leaves the question I genuinely want your answer to. If the surface of your city became lethally hot for 3 months every year, would you move underground, trading windows and sky for guaranteed cool? Or is that trade a surrender we should refuse, spending the money instead on cooling the surface we already have? There's real disagreement here, even among engineers. Drop your answer in the comments, underground, or surface, and tell me why. I read them all, and the best arguments shape the next episode. If this kind of dig, past the thumbnail, down to the documents, is worth 20 minutes of your time, subscribing takes 1 second, and it tells the algorithm this channel deserves to exist. TrendXverseGo publishes one deep investigation like this every week. Clean energy, geopolitics, the future being built while nobody's watching. Catch the pulse. Lead the future. That's not a slogan, it's the whole job description. And next week's file is already open on my desk. While the world argued about cities underground, 3 companies quietly spent billions building something in international waters, structures no nation's laws fully reach, powered by the ocean itself. The renders look utopian. The contracts tell a different story. Who really owns the sea? That investigation is next, and what we found in the filings genuinely surprised us. See you there.